everybody, and welcome to my channel. Today I am bringing to you a video about travel nursing. Why? Because I'm a travel nurse and I get questions about travel nursing all the time. I get questions from nurses, I get questions from my friends, I get questions from my sister about what is travel nursing, what do we do, and how can someone who is interested get started, or what points should they even start. So if you want to know how you can get started on becoming a travel nurse and the 7 things that you should do before you decide you want to be a travel nurse, then keep watching. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to talk about in deciding that you want to be a travel nurse is examining yourself. Examine the kind of person that you are. Are you the kind of person that can easily adapt to change? Or are you the kind of person who likes stability, who likes the same thing every single day? Are you the kind of person who does not like to float? Do not like to float at all. Do not send me anywhere other than this unit that I am supposed to be in. If you're that kind of person, you may want to think a little bit harder about being a travel nurse. As a travel nurse, you are going to be at a facility for 13 weeks. And you got to remember, you are coming to this facility to fulfill the needs of the facility. So sometimes you may be contracted to work in a specific unit, but when it's time to float to another unit, you will be the first to float. And a lot of times in your contract, it will specifically say that these are the other units that you may be floated to. So if you're the kind of person who, if you are floated out of your unit, out of your comfort zone, you just break down, travel nursing may not be for you. So one of the things that I recommend, and what I did actually before I even decided that I wanted to be a travel nurse, is switch over to being a float nurse at my facility. I was at my facility they call it PRN, but basically you're a float nurse. So basically what that means is you come into the facility, you still work your 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts, but you basically just go wherever in the facility they need help. And what I found is that prepared me for being a travel nurse, because I basically came to work every single day and I didn't really know where I had to work. And I was able to adapt. One day I was on the med-surg floor, the other day I was on a cardiac floor, the ED hold, and some days I was on my floor, the trauma step-down floor. And I learned to acclimate. I learned to balance having 3 patients versus having 5 patients. Some days I had 7 patients. I was able to obtain different skills that I wouldn't normally perform on my unit, which was a trauma step-down unit. I learned how to do IVs, and being on a cardiac floor, for example, I learned everything cardiac that we normally didn't see on my floor. So that is one of the biggest things that I like to recommend to people, especially new nurses, to kind of just branch out, become a float nurse, kind of just broaden your knowledge. Because the other thing is, once you work at a facility, they kind of expect you to have a general knowledge, a little bit of everything. And the facility that you're going to be working at and the unit is not going to be exactly, to what you're used to. So you're going to want that different experience at different floors, even if it's within your own facility. The other thing you're going to want to do is decide where you want to go. If there's a specific state that you're going to want to travel to, you're going to want to do your research. Luckily for us nurses, 25 of the 50 states are compact states. What that means is that basically when you renew your license, you could choose to apply for a compact state license. It's just basically an extra $100 that they make you pay. And with that, you have access to just basically walking through 25 of the 50 states. It wasn't like that before, and it wasn't like that when I first started nursing. Every state that I wanted to go to, I had to do the whole entire process, pay a whole separate fee, and it took almost 2 months sometimes for each license that I had to obtain. So do your research, see if the state that you want to go to is a compact state, because it'll make things so much easier for you. If it's not, like California, New Jersey, what's the other one, New York, you're gonna have to give yourself some time. You're gonna have to do your research, and you're gonna have to figure out what you have to do in order to obtain a license from that specific state. So the other thing that I'm gonna wanna suggest if you wanna become a travel nurse is to obtain all your specialties, all your certifications, and keep all your licenses up to date. Do your NIHs, make sure those are up to date. Make sure your BLS is up to date. Your PALS if you're in pediatrics. CPR, ACLS, I think I said. All those things have to be up to date. Immunizations, up to date. A physical, up to date. Make sure you just have all that stuff readily available and ready to go. The other thing that I want to recommend if you really want to be a travel nurse is to network with other travel nurses. If you're blessed and able to have the opportunity to work with one, pick their brains. Normally, travel nurses like myself, we love when you ask us questions. Don't ask me when I'm trying to chart or somebody's coding or anything crazy, but when we have downtime, I do not mind asking you asking me any questions about travel nursing. I love to just share my knowledge and whatever I can do to help. And normally we like talking about it because we love what we do. So network, yes. Ask them what they had to do. Ask them if they like their recruiter. Ask them if they like the company they travel with. If you don't have any travel nurses at your facility, another thing that you can do is join travel nurse groups on Facebook. I belong to a couple of them, and you could not believe how much valuable information some of these nurses have that they've shared with me. Some of them have been travel nurses for over 20 years, and they kind of show you the tricks in the trade of being a travel nurse. And sometimes they tell you things that you didn't even know about, or they keep you up to date as to different kind of programs, or if there's a strike going on, which is a different kind of travel nursing you can do, which I can get into in another video. But just to keep yourself up to date and kind of just learn. The other thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have your 1 to 2 years of nursing experience. 2 years is the recommended for most recruiters and different companies. They want you to have at least 2 years of nursing experience in the specialty that you want to float to. What I mean by that is you cannot be a med-surg nurse for 2 years and decide that on your travel assignment you want to work in the ED. That's kind of not how it works. So if you are interested in being an ER travel nurse, you're going to want to have at least 2 years in the ER, or at least a year. Sometimes they're a little flexible by that. If you've been a nurse for over 2 years, say you started off in med-surg for a year and then you switched over to the ER for a year or ICU for a year, then they're a little bit flexible. You should be able to travel with that. But most places require you to at least have 2 years of nursing experience prior to you working as a travel nurse. So get your 2 years in. To find yourself a recruiter. That is the last step that I would recommend if you are going to become a travel nurse. Why do I say that should be your last step? Because the number one complaint that you will hear from travel nurses is that they have millions of recruiters calling them all the time, and then they feel overwhelmed and they don't want to go with one, and you don't want to waste their time and you don't want them wasting your time. So what I like to say is get all your ducks in a row. Like I said, get your licenses up to date. Know what state you're going to want to go to. Talk to different travel nurses. If there's a travel nurse at your facility who works with a specific company and they love their recruiter and they've been with them for 10 years and they're just ranting and raving about them, that might be the way to go. On my first travel assignment, my recruiter was recommended to me by one of the travel nurses on my floor. And I worked with her for almost a year and she was nothing but amazing. So that's one of the ways that you should be able to find a recruiter. But I would not call a recruiter or call a travel company until you are absolutely sure that this is what you're going to want to do. It can get a little frustrating. It could be a little overwhelming. So just kind of taking it through these couple steps that I talked about will gear you and get you prepared for when you finally do get to talking to a recruiter. You have everything in a row. You can tell them this is what I want, X, Y, and Z. So that's pretty much it.